Hey everyone, it's Colin here. Today we're going to show you how I made this in Blender. We're going to show the process for modeling, UV wrapping, texture painting, and rigging. Just a heads up, this is my first time making a Blender model completely on my own, so it should be pretty beginner friendly. It all started when my sister suggested I make a low poly cat for the game I'm working on, and I thought, why not turn that into a video? I started by drawing out this example reference. While it's not necessary, it can really help you when it comes to getting that initial outline for a model correct. Getting started, we're going to use a cylinder for the body of our cat. Because we're looking for more of a chunky feel to the body of our cat. Honestly, you could use a cube, but the cylinder kind of just provides some of that geometry that you would want for the body, or at least I would think so. So we're going to position this in the center of the body, and then kind of stretch it out until it reaches that center piece. And then we're going to extend the cylinder to kind of fill in the back piece of the cat we're working on. Once we get that, we can then start switching to individual points using the shortcut 1. And then we can shape the cylinders to fit the side of our cat. Now, what really got me inspired and started in Blender was this YouTuber called Les Cario. I'll link in the description. And he made a really great video on making low poly characters. And that's also what kind of got me into this. It's definitely a worthwhile process if you enjoy it. So, we're going to delete half of our shape right now, and then we're going to use the mirror modifier. What the mirror modifier does is it's what it sounds like. It creates a second copy so that any changes you make on one side happens on the other side. This is really useful as we don't need to make 4 sets of legs but only 2. And it saves us some time. So we're going to start by bending these legs and make sure that they're straight. It looks a little bit funny to be honest, but I think this is a pretty good start if you want to get at it. Now that we have these legs, we're going to get rid of the extra verts on the sides. Just gonna get rid of unnecessary pieces that don't need to be there. Now we are going to apply the mirror modifier, but keep in mind if you're actually following along, I don't recommend doing this because later we're going to reapply it, so you don't want to be doing it again. But this kind of shows the process of, let's say you do apply it, you can easily fill in the gaps where you'd expect there to be something. Now, mirror modifiers, you should typically start applying it once you actually have your rough shape of your final, whatever you're working in. But also you expect there to be some type of symmetry to your model. So now we're going to start with the front half, and we'll start by extruding the side of our cylinder to get kind of that neck feel. It's kind of odd, so we do need to get a couple more extrudes to kind of fill in the shape of your neck of your cat. And this is the part where we actually delete it again, and now we're going to reapply the mirror modifiers as I mentioned. So I would like to cut it out, but it would look really funny and you'll be asking why did that happen? What are those extra polygons? So we're going to get started with the front 2 legs, but we're going to notice quickly why that mirror modifier is so important. As we can see again, we just created our front legs and we only have to do one. Oh my god. And they both look the same. So it's really nice. These legs are a little bit weird. There happens to be an extra extrusion that happens if you notice the top half of the legs. And later, just use it in our build, as you probably want it there anyways, depending on what you're working on. And now that we got our 2 front legs, so we're going to straighten out the feet, as when we created these legs, it happened to be a little bit offset as we kind of smoothed it around. So we'll speed this up so you don't have to watch us do that very slowly. And now that we have that, let's get the legs to be a little more correct to our outline. As you can see how valuable it is to create a new 3D model, it can save you a lot of work when you realize that it just doesn't look right. So having the outline is amazing. Now we're looking at our model, and we're going to get started on the head in a second here. We just need to apply your mirror modifier again. At this point, I say you can just apply it, as we're going to start making the tail, which would look weird if you had the mirror modifier. And then we're gonna get the tips of the feet, and we're gonna lower them to make it a little bit more correct so our feet aren't so blocky. And then here comes the difficult part. So this is gonna be the face of our animal. As if you're probably wondering, yes, this cat outline was drawn from my own cat. So you want to start marking the seams. With the mirror, how the seams work is we're preparing our model to do UV unwrapping so we can actually start painting. And to kind of get a picture of how this works is imagine you're making like a paper cutout, and you want to like put instructions of how you're going to cut this onto a 2D picture to create a 3D object. And other than that, it's really hard to explain other than just doing it and seeing what works. For me, I kind of like just to go overboard and just keep putting them down until like whenever eventually UV unwrap, it just comes out good. Lots of pieces though is kind of the downside, but that's honestly just part of the learning process, and I'm sure you'll find a better process as we go through. One part I do know is whenever you do have limbs, you typically want to separate those from the body, and then have one line goes down straight down, so you can unfold it kind of like a cylinder that you cut with scissors right down one side. And we do put a little bit more work on the face here. As you notice, on actual cats, they have a little spot, they have a little bit of space between the ears where you can pet them. So we're going to separate the ears out. This part speeds up again once again because it's all stuff you've seen so far, and if you like to follow along, I do recommend applying those simple modeling skills that we've already covered to follow along. But if you really want to, you can also slow this down. I don't recommend it because it's best learning if you try it yourself and see if you can create somewhat what we're looking at. So what I'd like to do with UV unwrapping is I like to separate all the UV meshes, and we're going to quickly apply our 2D image to our material, and I like to group the body parts of each of our UV unwrap to kind of like organize what we're actually painting into it. And it just helps you know what you're going to paint, and it's really useful. And now let's start painting. So we're gonna do a quick test right now, and you can see how most of it, when we paint over it, there's actually some spots that don't turn white. Why is that? That's actually really frustrating. It really got me, pissed off. But I quickly found out, actually throughout this process, that when you go inside your model, you can actually start painting again. But that's when I realized that your surfaces have normal vectors, which are perpendicular to your surface, and when you paint on it, it actually has to face the direction of your paintbrush. So to fix that, there's actually you select all of your models, and there's a quick command. The command that normalizes it is called Shift N, as mentioned before. And now that we can actually paint on all our surfaces, we're gonna start painting, which is sweet. So we're gonna start with the eyes. This is actually my like 4th time doing it because they all look like super black and completely like out of proportions. This time I actually just happened to draw them a lot nicer. I think that's just how it goes in terms of drawing. I'm not an expert. I'd love to become better at it. as texture painting is actually a really enjoyable process I'm finding so far, and if you follow through this video too, you'd actually really enjoy it. So we got some really nice looking eyes that kind of like lemons. I think this is how cats look like, and then they have slits. But I thought cat eyes were also circular, like, it's my cats, well, if you've seen cats when they're up at night, which most of the time they are, their eyes actually open up like really wide, their pupils, and it kind of looks like their whole entire eye is a pupil. But I checked today, like earlier today, and their eyes are actually slits. I'm like, wow, the cat's eyes are not always, their pupils aren't always so wide. But anyways, we're gonna start the nose here, and it's just gonna be a simple upside down triangle, and then we'll have the little mouth as we can see here. And this whole process is just seeing like what looks good, what doesn't. As you can see, I did speed it up pretty fast so you don't take too long on the painting process. And so we pick it up. Now we're gonna start with the rigging. So this is gonna be like pretty easy once you get the hang of it. We use the same as before to move objects, and also to extrude them is also E. But you actually gotta click tab so you can select the individual one. And then we also use Curl D to duplicate our bones so we have multiple. And this process is overall like really pretty simple. Therefore, I'm going to speed it up a little bit here so we can get to the finish line. Just a little bit. It's going to be at like 300x, so so you can actually follow along. You can actually see this process is really simple. The more annoying part is when you start getting the weight painting, which is actually really simple as well. It's just a very repetitive process, and that won't be included in this video. There's lots of great videos out there, but once you look at it, it's really easy to get the hang of it, so it should be pretty fine. And thanks for watching. If you got this far, I really appreciate it. Have a good day.